the confirmation of DNA is really something that everyone has missed, and I think is huge because research shows that when participants in studies were shown videos of peaceful scenes, meditative scenes, and then immediately shown video of violent scenes or anger or fear, those emotional states showed in their DNA a direct winding of the DNA helix and a direct simultaneous decrease in the conductivity of DNA and the ability of DNA to receive and transmit energy from its environment and to other cells. So these changes happen immediately, the researchers found, and this is actually U.S. military research, which is why we don't hear about it, done by INSCOM and promoted by Greg Braden, which was the source that I first heard about this. But essentially, INSCOM was able to show that the electrical state and the state of mind of a person, the conductivity increased dramatically, and as in a state of peace or meditation, as the DNA unwound into a perfectly straight ladder, or it would curve, I imagine, but there would be no twisting of the DNA strand. And so in real time, they were able to record how, as someone tensed up with fear at seeing a change in the video screen images towards violence, their DNA would immediately wind up. So the idea of being unwound or being wound up directly has to do with what's going on in every cell of our body within our DNA in real time with our emotions.
See, and from that, I just want to. It's so obvious at this point, but again, we can also understand why we are so inundated with the violence, on the TV and on the media, and why they chose to give us that, so to speak, and also disconnects with the wireless systems around us and the cell phone radiation, which like we're being, as these natural energies that you're talking about, Alex, are probably heading towards Earth, or we're being part of that. We're also slowly, if you will, being cut off from those energies. The more we focus on the things that goes on in the media, or even being in a city where wireless and cell phone radiation is very prominent. Would you agree with that, Alex?
Definitely, definitely. And I think that a lot of the brilliance of someone like Anastasia in Siberia has to do with her ability to live in a purest human state, where the water she drinks, the air she breathes, the sound impacting her body, her biorhythms are all aligned with that through her ancient practices and her cultural knowledge. And I think that's the example. And Edgar Cayce really said it in one of his predictions, that the hope of the world would come through Russia. And I hope to follow her amazing lead and present the science behind the concepts that heartbeat resonance and heartbeat synchronization is the direct way to not only telepathy but a whole different experience of the world, which has been defined scientifically as synesthesia, which is something that I experience and is a complex topic to get into, but I think worth getting into because I believe these are the conditions that the pyramids engender when people develop spiritually within them, or when gestation occurs within the pharaoh's infants. I think all of these situations really lead to synesthesia, and that and a great example of that might be Daniel Tammet, who's now turning heads in England for his amazing mathematical abilities, as well as his ability to express what goes on in his synesthetic experience of numbers and the higher mathematical realms. Really.
Is there something more? Sorry, say the name again of the person. Daniel
Tammet. Tammet.
Can you also mention something briefly about him?
Yeah, I've written about him in my second book, Tesla's Rebirth, which goes into some of my reincarnation realizations. But Daniel Tammet is really an amazing guy. People have known him as Pi Man because he recited over 250,000 digits of pi over 5 hours of length in recitation by memory. So he's someone who experiences numbers in a more complex way than I do. But certainly my experience of mathematics reflects what he describes as well, which is a kind of illumination of light in our perception and in our emotional experience of images and thoughts that we're having that seem to provide information, critical information about the environment or about what's being sought. For example, people channel information. And it seems like Daniel Tammet and the whole ability with synesthesia is to be able to immediately receive, for example, people say Daniel Tammet does not do math in his head, he simply channels the answer,
sure.
in effect.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like a meta function or a higher function of the human consciousness that manifests through a luminous field that's experienced around the body in color and light. And I would like to say as well, in my experience of it, Daniel Tammet does not mention this much, although he was diagnosed with autism when he was young. And the whole shaking and rhythmic rocking back and forth or banging of the head that autistic children demonstrate, I believe, has to do with reinforcing that heartbeat that they're missing from their environment. And that's exactly what they have in the womb. the fetus is inverted in the womb with the root chakra of the infant right underneath the mother's heart. And so the heartbeat is literally resonating and synchronizing the biorhythms of the mother and child in the womb, exactly as the pyramids were designed to do with two people on opposite sides of the planet. So this concept right there really comes from the deep knowledge of the mother culture, the kind of maternal culture or matriarchal culture of this Sanskrit society. And, I believe that's something that Tesla had really tuned into in his research. And I think that, the indigenous cultures of the world right now are recognizing this shift of power towards the matriarchal leadership. And so I'm really excited about that as well. But I think this whole shift that we're looking at has to do with synesthesia and the synesthetic experience shared globally by people who can communicate through a holographic field, and in that way transcends the obstacles that human beings obviously on this planet must overcome if we want to survive things like the oil spill and whatever else that these money-hungry people can come up with for us.
Do you think that this was the mind of the ancient man and woman a little bit more, that they had this interconnectedness to begin with, hence they had the ability to build and create some of these monuments? Because one fascinating aspect of this that you mentioned to me is, does this mean that we consciously master this technique, or is this something that goes on in the case of Daniel here, Temet, then he has it as a form of, it's an unconscious process, if you will. It's just happening to him. I'd reckon that it's not a talent, so to speak, that he's learning to have developed, but it's just actually a side effect of something where it's just happening to him. And would you suspect that that's the same thing that would happen to a lot of people on the planet then as well, if we go through this change?
Yes, I think that's exactly what is happening with us right now, and that my experience mirrors his and many other people who are perhaps more barefoot or more in tune to be at certain hotspots where this acoustic energy is focused. And I think the cause of this would be, in Daniel's case, the fact that he lives at the same distance from the Great Pyramid as Stonehenge, which is at 9.0% of the Earth's circumference from Giza. So that distance of 9% is, points to the fact that there is all this infrasound waves being focused on his area, and that he is one of the many people in that area who are really transducing those energies within their bodies into and having it reflect an alteration in their DNA that is underlying their new inner communication that's going on. And I have that inner communication as well, and I know there are networks of people around the world who are more advanced in that inner communication than I am even, and they're communicating with each other telepathically in ways that I'm not yet able to do consciously. Most of my communications are through deep meditations and through conscious thought and searching, whereby I have inspirational moments that I believe are certainly influenced by my higher self and other energies I'm looking to communicate with.
I want to talk more about that as well, but again, what you're saying is that just by close proximity to some of these monuments, or if we're in the right ratio from them, there can be certain benefits, so to speak, because of this.
Yes, and I would say all of the research goes to show that the quality of the water in your body really dictates your body's ability to assimilate that energy, as well as the quality of the emotion in your heart and the emotion in your energy field. So, for example, there's extensive research now in crop circles where